some of the people in communications at the White House, in the Treasury, will not respond to the show, trying to just book anybody to talk about this economy.
So you're saying
they won't even answer.
He's trying to like soothe the market, and he did a horrible job doing it.
Donald Trump's painful and unnecessary trade war with our top 3 trading partners has devastated the American economy and the stock market. It's gotten so bad that an increasing number of MAGA allies and right-wing media are publicly rebelling, including this morning a MAGA Fox News host who was fed up and furious and called out Trump and the Trump administration, not merely for their economic mismanagement, but also for their unwillingness to publicly defend their strategy, even on Fox News. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we got a couple of clips to play, but I want to focus on this one here, this MAGA Fox News panel, and the person in particular is MAGA Fox News host Dagen McDowell, whom we've discussed in previous videos. She's not simply a conservative, not simply a Republican. She is a true Trump loyalist, and even she is fed up with what's going on. We're going to play this clip and unpack it together.
Say this, and I wasn't going to say it, but again, I used to co-host with the transportation secretary, and like
Howard.
The transportation
who's that?
secretary.
Duffy.
Oh, I forgot.
Shame on you. But some of the people in communications at the White House, in the Treasury, will not respond to the show, trying to just book anybody to talk about this economy.
So you're saying
they won't even answer the show. But Scott Bassett goes on one of the lowest rated shows on another network. I mean, you could open the window and shout out of the window in the middle of New York City.
He did speak with Kudlow at the economic.
I know. I'm just saying that if they want to communicate with the American people, then.
Well, he's trying to communicate to the market.
So I'm calling him out.
Here's the thing.
Like, you know what? The people who work for these Treasury secretaries need to answer a text message.
By the way, I know
it's shameful.
I know that Howard is the.
I'm not talking about Howard.
Is the Commerce Secretary, but my point is, he's trying to like soothe the market, and he did a horrible job doing it.
Well, we've much more on these markets coming up.
So, damn, that's some pretty harsh pushback, some pretty just aggressive pushback from MAGA Fox News hosts on air against Trump and the Trump administration. Again, not merely for the mismanagement of the economy, but for their unwillingness to defend it even on Fox. Remember, and I bring this up a lot, but it's just worth repeating. 2 years ago, Fox had to pay effectively a loyalty tithe, the single biggest defamation settlement in the history of American jurisprudence, $787 million to Dominion Voting Systems because Fox knowingly signal boosted the defamatory lies of Donald Trump about the 2020 election against Dominion Voting Systems. I mean, there can be no question where Fox's loyalties are, okay, in ways that CNN and MSNBC have never been to a Democratic administration. And Dagen McDowell is furious because she's like, hey, listen, we want reassurance. We want to convey some sort of reassurance to the American people that you all know what the hell you're doing, and they don't. And you won't even come on here to take questions from us? I mean, it just suggests a genuine insecurity about the current approach. And Dagen McDowell is not the only one to basically call this out in the past 48 hours. I would say, in a roundabout way, it's kind of strange to say this, but Dagen McDowell is the most credible source because she's so devoutly loyal to Trump. She is a Trump cultist, a Trump sycophant. And when she calls Trump and the Trump administration out, in theory, it might curry some favor with other Trump loyalists or Trump cultists out there. Now, somebody that I find genuinely and generally much more credible than Dagen McDowell is CNN's Caitlin Collins. And she also made a similar point about the shyness of the Trump administration, relatively speaking, to defend what's going on in the American economy and the stock market as a consequence of their tariffs and their economic strategy. So we're going to play this clip and unpack it together.
It was awfully quiet at the White House today, a statement that we haven't really been able to say or utter at all over the last 7 weeks. But it rang true today as the markets were tanking over President Trump's massive tariff policy and his refusal to rule out the possibility of a recession, with Wall Street having its worst day of 2025. The president remained behind closed doors for all of it, declining to open any of the 3 events that he had listed on his public schedule to the press, who were waiting nearby with questions. The president has a history of paying close attention to the markets, touting them when they're up as a gauge of his political success, often ignoring them when they're full of red, even when amplified by his own words.
Are you expecting a recession this year? I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
The president there preparing Americans potentially to wait a little bit as he was hesitant to rule out any possibility that his own policies could trigger a recession. When he was given another chance later on Air Force One flying back here to Washington, he said this.
Are you worried about a recession? Maria Bartiromo asked you and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what, of course you hesitate.
Who knows? Now, of course, the president is not saying that there will be a recession, but refusing to rule out the possibility is notable. Trump and his top economic advisors have argued that the moves that they are making here are necessary to rebalance the global trade system that they argue has unfairly put the United States in the place that it is now. Investors, though, are clearly spooked when you look at where the markets are and where they were on Election Day and just the last few months, as you can see here, compared to where they closed this afternoon. Now, all of this comes as the president is set to impose more tariffs this week, including on all U.S. steel and aluminum imports, vowing there will be no exemptions for that. And as for those businesses that are seeking clarity, the president said over the weekend, quote, they have plenty of clarity. Today, he declined to say as much, at least in front of the cameras.
So again, when you consider how typically not camera shy Donald Trump is, again, I think it's worth noting, again, an observation effectively made by both Fox and CNN. I will also point out that that recording was made yesterday, or that clip was made yesterday, I believe, and the 25% steel and aluminum tariffs globally have been imposed as of this morning. Of course, it could last 5 minutes. Donald Trump could snap his fingers and rescind it in the next 30 minutes. I mean, you just don't know with this guy. I want to play one more clip following Caitlin Collins' monologue there, where she interviews Maggie Haberman, a New York Times reporter who has perhaps, out of any mainstream journalist, the greatest penetration into the MAGA movement and to Trump world. I mean, she's revealed so many scoops about the Trump campaign and the Trump administration over the years, right, going back long before this. And they discuss Trump's reaction or lack thereof to what's going on in the economy and the stock market.
Great to have you here this evening. When you look at the president's schedule, obviously, basically every day for the last several weeks, there have been multiple events. Even if they're closed, the White House always opens up typically one of them for the president to have the press come in. They ask him before that happens, and he makes the decision really here, just to give people some insight into this. How much do you think this decision today is due to what we saw happen with the stock market?
I think certainly some of it is, Caitlin. This is not something that they can explain away very easily. This is the second week in a row where there is a significant drop in the Dow Jones number. And as you said, this is something that Trump uses to measure his own success. It is also something that a lot of business leaders use to measure success. And there has been a lot of private complaints from allies and from business leaders privately that people are getting an inconsistent message from the president about his policies and about how he's implementing his policies. And so him saying that he couldn't rule out a recession, that's logic and that's actually candid. But as you note, it was pretty striking for him because usually it's talking optimistically or saying the worst can't happen.
Yeah, he obviously chooses his words carefully, certainly when it comes to the economy and predicting, what his policies are going to lead to.
Now, I disagree with that assessment. Donald Trump, there are very few situations in which Donald Trump actually chooses his words carefully. He speaks in hyperbole and platitude. But yeah, there you go, folks. I mean, again, it's an observation that many people are making that the Trump administration has pulled back from their aggressive full court press on the media as the economy and the stock market are devastated as a direct consequence of what they've either implemented or threatened to implement. It's all on them, right? And again, I think it says something that even Dagen McDowell, MAGA Fox News host, is calling them out for their cowardice. And we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. But I see no reason to believe that this inconsistent tariff trade war policy will change anytime soon. It seems to be Donald Trump's bread and butter, the cost of which for both of those things will probably skyrocket. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.